Hello, good morning, everybody. If people are joining, I'm Joanne. Pleased to give a couple of minutes for people to join who I hope are joining the session, and then I'll go on to my presentation. In the meantime, please, anybody who's joining, love to know a little bit more about who you are and where you're coming from. Oh, hello from sunny Chepstow. Hello to Charlie. Hi from Birmingham. Wonder what the weather's like up there. It's a bit rainy down here in Essex, but it is November in England, isn't it? So what can we expect? So just give another minute or so for people to join. And as I say, I'm Joanne Alexander Theffery. I'm delighted to be here speaking with you about languages for your career and giving you some insight into how I have used languages throughout the last, I graduated from university in 1982, so that gives you some idea, and delighted to hear from anybody who's from that sort of era. And oh, Sussex by the sea, yes, lovely. I'm not sure it's a good day to go swimming in the sea, mind you, but lovely to see you there as well. Okay, well, I think it's probably time to start the ball rolling, so I'll share my screen. And what I'd like to ask any of you, please, during my talk, please do put information in the chat, and also any questions, please put in the Q&A, and I will be very happy to answer them at the end. And any comments, my details, you're very welcome to get in touch with me. So here we are, reasons to learn languages for future employment. That's what I'd like to speak to you about today, and to give you some insight from my now many years of actually using my languages throughout my work and my career, and give you, I hope, some insight and some encouragement to, even in this era we are in now, to really go for it and use your languages for whatever job you'd like to do. So effectively, I want to sell you, as a salesperson my whole life, to sell you the advantages of a career using your languages. And what I'd like to do over the next 45 minutes is actually to give you a bit of a background into my own reasons for wanting to use my languages in my career. Then ask you, and please think about it, because I'm going to ask you to put in the chat why you are learning languages and what you want to do with them, or what you are doing with them. Briefly touch on languages learning at school, university, in the country, and obviously the how important that is. Look at the reasons why linguists are so perfect, particularly in my case, in companies which are trading internationally, and look at then, which I will try to spend more time on, and I would love feedback and comments, give you lots of scenarios and case studies and interesting anecdotes about how I have used languages in different ways over my career over the last 30 years. And then I'd love to get your comments and Q&A, and very happy to engage with you all. First of all, let's go back to the beginning. What made me want to consider a career using languages? At the top left, I hope you will forgive me the putting in there one of my most favourite books and authors, Pierre Probst, who wrote a fantastic range in French, Caroline Caroline's Amis. And I was given a book of this when I was 4, which inspired me so much, not only about an independent little girl traveling around with her little animals, but also inspired me about countries and then languages. And I included this picture not only because I love it, but because from a cultural point of view, me aged 5, 6, 7, I was convinced she must be giving them sausage rolls and gravy, and I couldn't understand it. Well, of course, they're croissants and hot chocolate. So it was learning what which a little girl up in East Yorkshire had no idea about French culture, which influenced me so much through my life. And indeed, all the books, I had the whole series, and I've always read them to my children as well. Moving on, myself, I was really influenced by the UK, joining the EEC, European Economic Community, and as a teenager, the opening up of business and the culture, European culture, very much influenced me. And loving drama and speaking languages, I just felt it was such an interesting option. And indeed, it was either that or drama. And I think I made the very good decision of going to study languages. So I did. And but during that time, I also studied and worked abroad in Switzerland, Germany, Spain, and Austria, and then did a degree at Salford University, which was a really great course. Tragic that the language department closed there, but I did a German and Spanish joint honours with French, and which I loved also because we did a lot of specialisation on translation interpreting, and I spent a year in Spain and Austria. I then went on to do a postgraduate diploma in European marketing with French and German at what's now Napier University in Edinburgh. And that was really good fun. And I spent a third of the course, and we were all allocated to different companies in Scotland. And I was allocated, would you believe, to a company that makes wooden spinning wheels. So I had to learn how to put together and take down and know all the words in German. And then I, for 3 weeks, had this spinning wheel in a suitcase, traveling around the whole of Germany by train, visiting craft shops, putting the spinning wheel together and selling them. And that's really what inspired me. I really like doing this. I like selling. I like speaking to people. I like traveling, and I like speaking languages. So that inspired me to really look at where I could go next. And where I went, I was it's actually through what was called the Milk Round in Edinburgh. I was fortunate enough to have a graduate training position at Smith and Nephew Healthcare, amazingly in my hometown of Hull, which actually was probably where I didn't want to go, which is also why I'm sure I got offered the job, because I'm sure everybody wants to go to Hull. But at the time, I wasn't that keen, but very glad I did. So I ended up spending 10 years with Smith Nephew, the last 5.5, 6 years of that as export manager for 2 trading divisions of the company. And that was the best experience ever, because I was able to travel around the whole of Europe. And in fact, I went around the world selling specialist products to do with chiropody, would you believe, and contact lenses. And that experience was invaluable. So the opportunity, and I would also say that as a woman doing that in the 1980s, there were some people who did wonder whether it was a suitable role. But luckily, I had very supportive managers, and yeah, I really loved it. They closed my factory, so I had a opportunity to look around, and I actually took up a role which was offered quite quickly within a large bakery group. So I moved to be actually selling Hovis bread and muffins all over Europe. That was a bit of a culture change, and again, very, very interesting, very political company. And so I learned what I learned there that was very interesting for my career is that you can have quite large companies, for example, in this case, it was called British Bakeries at the time, who are very major players in the UK, but with really very little understanding of how to work and sell the products and trade in other markets. So that gave me an interest in how I could extend that. And then what happened? I actually was made redundant from the company, and at the same time, I was asked by supermarket buyers and distributors around Europe, could you please find us products? So really, without meaning to, I thought, well, you know what, why not? So I looked at products which were successful, and I set up my own distribution business, buying and selling, handling logistics, and distributing first around France and Spain, Benelux, Germany, and having that time bank accounts in different countries. Would you believe when I started up my business, I didn't have a mobile, I didn't have a computer. We're talking about 1993, 1994. I got my first mobile in 95. The youngsters listening to this can't even imagine that we managed to do business without mobiles, without having to use faxes, having to not being able to phone people, having to write letters to people. But yeah, it was just such an experience, and I enjoyed it so much. Setting up my business, going to exhibitions, using all my languages. I mean, I've listed here French, German, Spanish as the main ones, but also I had to learn Italian for when I was in the medical company. Also, with my husband is Iranian origin, so I do understand good spoken Farsi, Persian, and I can even speak some Dutch and bits of others as well. So in a way, I've always felt I created my business around my determination to use my languages within my career. And yeah, so time went on. I worked as a distributor, a consultant, a lot of, which I'll come on to later, translation agency, and then as an agent as well. My main premise was, of course, that within the EU, whether you are a British company selling into Spain, or Austrian company selling to the UK, or certainly for UK companies, there was no difference. So I worked very hard with not only UK but many UK companies to develop the business and the sales, with there being no barrier around Europe. But of course, we know things change. Things change. I mean, I had a French partner company for almost 20 years. I still work with them, but and also in Spain also. But of course, Brexit did have a major influence on the customers' wish, and when confidence is probably the right word, confidence in buying from the UK. Of course, that did affect business. A lot of companies are recovering from that slowly. And of course, the pandemic as well meant that I had to rethink, to a certain extent, certainly within the food industry, what I do, and came to the conclusion that the experience and the opportunities are still there. And I actually do still work, for example, in Spain and France and the Middle East, etc., but also work very much also now within the UK, importing and selling products here in the UK. So we have some examples of products which I've worked with, which, like the cakes, worked for many dessert, breakfast cereals, and even very recently some great products such as oat milks. Okay, let me move on. And here, what I'd love to ask you, if anybody is interested, to tell me if you how you already, or you would like to use your languages in your career. If you've got any comments to make in the chat, please do tell me. I quite understand if you don't want to, but I would love to know. I'd love to know anything you'd like to say, how you use your languages, whether you're in business, whether you're a translator, whether you're a teacher, whether you just enjoy it for fun, or whether you know, if you, I'll just give you a minute to write anything down. If you don't, I'll just move on. It's not a problem, because I know that many of you may be also students, thinking at an earlier stage about looking whether you want to study languages, do them for A-level, whether you want looking at your degrees, and it's really hard to know what you want to do. Oh, I've got somebody here. Oh, right. A native French speaker, yes, working in higher international education. That's great. Obviously, you need that, working in education is a great opportunity for using your languages. And yeah, no, that's really great. Thank you very much indeed for putting that. Oh, a freelance language teacher. Oh, yes, yes. Language teacher, great. Another language teacher. Yeah, and change careers. And it's interesting. If you're a teacher, I mean, I'll come on to talk about that. I'm passionate about the fact that as linguists, we are needed within business. Private school in the Middle East, use my languages. Okay, unsure in which direction to go. Yeah, I mean, I'd be very, very interested to know more about what you're doing as well. That sounds great. Um, let me just close that chat, and maybe I'll yeah. So in during the rest of my talk, please do feel free to add things as well. There's one more. I'll just come here. Would have liked the opportunity. It's not given me a booth to use. This is also the problem that often people who have got language degrees or languages, it's actually getting a company to fully appreciate it. I do understand that, and so and appreciate also in a financial sense. And so it's always been a lot of education needed with businesses to understand how valuable linguists are and to their bottom line. So that I never forget as a salesperson that it's the bottom line, it's the profit in the company. And as linguists, that's what we bring to businesses. Okay, so let me move on now. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I've got an able assistant here helping me as needed. Just quickly recapping, you probably those teachers know much better than me, but language learning in schools is difficult because there aren't enough opportunities. Children are able to drop them at GCSE, and then they're not an easy option to take for A level. So I know how hard it is. I mean, I was lucky that all my children went to a school in Essex called the Anglo-European Dingatestone, where they were fortunate enough to need to do two languages up to GCSE and in even three, but that is a no, very much an exception. I also feel quite strongly that that students and school children who have another language within their home, they're not encouraged enough or are not given the opportunity to formalize that in the case um, of qualifications. And of course, if you have any other language, we could be anything, couldn't it? Japanese, Punjabi, whatever. That does help you to learn other languages as well. The main thing I really like to emphasize, and it's something I believe so passionately, it's the importance of considering a straight language degree at university. I do think a lot of maybe teachers or careers advisors who are not linguists maybe themselves may say, oh, no, just have a language degree with something else if you want to do it. But if you have a language degree and you spent that time over the 4 years focusing on obviously the language, translation, interpreting, linguistics, etc., but also the history, culture of those particular languages. What a strength that gives you. Of course, business as well. You can mix it with the economics, and of course with other linked subjects as well. But that's going to set you up. It's such a vocational course, set you up so well to be very, very employable. And also, the opportunity of taking languages from scratch, not only Chinese, Arabic, but also, for example, if your school didn't do German, as sadly I understand that a number of schools aren't, the opportunity can be to pick up one of the European languages also at university level. And of course, at the time, studying and the opportunity of working and living and studying in the country is completely invaluable, not only to learn the language, but but indeed to understand the culture, all of which makes you very desirable in terms of a future employee. Coming to now, what I do then think, and it's something I say would say to anybody, you need to think very, very seriously about the sort of person you are. If you want to learn languages and you'd like to use your languages, what kind of person you are. Are you the kind of person who is outgoing? You love to deal with people, you love to work with people with different languages and cultures. Then if you fit that mold, or you would like to, then a career in international business is a absolutely great option. And that is obviously what I have done, and I would recommend that to anybody with interest. And I'm going to go on to give you some reasons. At the bottom line, that linguists, why are they sought after employees? Why do businesses, even if they don't know it, why do they really need us? It's because we can adapt to all kinds of companies, their internal cultures and how they work. And nowadays you also have so many businesses which maybe are owned by, I don't know, a Swedish parent, or they are all different kinds of scenarios, or it's a Japanese link or whatever, but we can adapt. We have that flexibility. We can work as a team with all different kinds of people, both within the company and externally. We have an empathy with different cultures. And really important, when you study languages, you have to develop an attention to detail. You can't translate text. You cannot be an interpreter. You cannot do any of that unless you look at the detail. And those are all attributes which make us extremely useful and productive, and we are very good at being proactive and getting things done as well. I think this all comes together in the fact that we, as a linguist who is well traveled, who's lived in other countries, who speaks a number of languages, we can think on our feet. So put us in a complicated and tricky situation within the company or in a local market, we're going to be able to analyze it well. I'm not saying that people who don't speak languages, many people can do it as well, but we have an added training, I suppose, in terms of studying languages, which makes us, I would say, better at it. Of course, then the very, very practical level that we are able to learn new languages. So if we join a company and they say, well, we have got a lot of business in South Korea, and you can say, well, yeah, I can learn Korean. And yes, we can, because once you know the building blocks for learning a particular language, you know how to go about learning more and enjoy it. Because that's the other point. I love grammar. I love to learn languages, and I love practicing them as well. So that's a real pleasure. I always say, obviously not to do with my work, but I speak Persian, Farsi, really because I spent so much time with my mother-in-law who loves chatting, and I picked up the language and am now quite certainly in a sort of for chatting anyway, I've got a reasonable level of language, and I couldn't do that if I didn't really love doing it. Then again, within a business, how useful we are. We, of course, from a marketing point of view, companies need to have their information translated and project managed, and we are very good at handling that. That's all I can say, handling it, because it's complicated. Obviously, some companies will expect a linguist to do all the translation, so we have to be very clear and say, no, for publication, you have to have native speaker linguists, but within a company, we can project manage it. And of course, we may get involved with translating into our own language. And of course, for day-to-day emails and conversations, yeah, of course we can. We do use our linguistic knowledge. Of course, we may well be very proficient interpreters and translators ourselves. So of course, within a company, and I'm talking really of trading companies, manufacturers, we are also invaluable. So those are all some ways that we are sought after employees. There may well be more. I'm not saying I'm covering everything. And obviously, it also depends if you have another speciality. Maybe you're an engineer as well, or you studied chemistry, or you're a historian. There could be lots of different areas which could be added to that. But I do think in general we we are. I mean, and we need to really push that as well. That's my key. Okay, so this is where I like to spend a bit more time because I'd like to give you some good um, anecdotes and information about how I've used my languages through my business. And what I've decided to do was put it into different categories of jobs. But some of them they interrelate, and I've been involved in all of these. So starting with the top left, sales. I remember once being asked when I first joined Smith and Nephew, actually, the export manager said to me, Joanne, what would you rather do, marketing or sales? And I said sales. And the reason is sales, you're customer facing, you're managing people, you're dealing with your customers, whether it's here in the UK or wherever you are in the world and internationally. And sales obviously can take many roles. I mean, one area I've been very much involved in is cold calling. Actually, sales, visiting in person or phoning when you don't know people. It's hard. It's hard. But I always feel that speaking the local language and people knowing that you have made an effort to do so, I've always found that you get a better response, actually. And one example of sales, I'll just give you a couple of examples briefly for each of these areas. I had to do cold calling in Italy, would you believe, when I was selling contact lens materials to laboratories. So I'd already got my Italian language training, having chosen a teacher who was Maltese. And I said, I really need to learn all the verb endings for all the tenses in Italian, which was great. I still remember my pluperfect subjunctive, I think. Anyway, I traveled all around Italy in my car, calling on contact lens laboratories out of the blue. And you know what? I was very well received. And I've done other sales jobs where I've had clients or companies I'm working with, and one recently for, in fact, a brand of really delicious meatballs called Gosh. You might see them in Lidl. I did a sales role with them, getting hold of the right supermarket buyers across Spain, France, Belgium, Netherlands, speaking to them in the local language and doing a really sort of detailed promotion of the product, which was then used actually by the company for a sale of their business, in fact. But that kind of role, you need to be very happy to get on the phone, to contact people, to go and visit people. And I'm a great believer that sales is a fantastic role for anybody interested in languages. Interpreting as well. Of course, interpreting is a core area that linguists go in, whether it's conference interpreting or liaison interpreting. In business, I've always found sort of interpreting and linked to negotiation, meaning that you're doing the talking, not speaking for somebody else, has been a major part of what I do. And what many times I've, for example, had visitors to factories, and I'll tell you an interesting anecdote of a bakery which I was working with, and we had our French customers came over, and one of the guys said, "Oh, I speak. My wife is English. I speak perfect English. I can translate. I can interpret for all my colleagues." But interestingly, when we sat down, and you all know, those of you who do this, who can interpret, that the skill of quickly translating the between different people in a business setting, it's basically mental gymnastics that you have to be trained to train your brain to do it. And yeah, something I've always loved. I've always loved doing it. And I've done many meetings with, for example, South American suppliers and customers, and I've attended exhibitions where I've been even talking between, not even using English, between French and Spanish or German and English, and all sorts of interesting things come up. I remember one very interesting thing when I was with some German customers, and obviously with Spanish, I was saying tu to everybody, and I realized I couldn't say du in German. So all sorts of interesting scenarios come up, which actually are cultural. And I remember in that particular case, I ended up just speaking in English because it was a bit easier. But so interpreting, yes, but interpreting within business, liaison interpreting, somebody speaking 3-4 minutes and then you passing it to the other. That is a really, really great. And obviously negotiating yourself. Importing and exporting. Obviously, the whole thing about my business has been working on the importing and exporting. By that, I also mean with the customs declaration, logistics, the technical areas of actually importing and exporting goods, all of which languages are so crucial. And I'm still doing that very much now. With the new regulations coming into the UK as a result of Brexit, I'm working now with a number of EU companies in Spain, France, and Sweden at the moment, who need an importer in the UK to be their representative. So the importing and exporting is, in general, is an ideal area for anybody with linguists to take part in. Purchasing as well. I mean, I've got many projects which I've worked in, which I have yeah, I've worked, for example, with Spanish partners, and I've done many purchasing of products for them. So they don't speak English. So I've been working with them to source products all over Northern Europe and handle all the negotiation and then translation to Spanish, and then making sure that they the business gets done. And that's been probably one of the most interesting parts of my role. It's purchasing, negotiation, and that obviously links into sales with the companies, all interrelated, and it also links to the marketing, because obviously when you are marketing products, you have to have all the right information in the local language. One quick anecdote would be working with, as I did for many years, with a large frozen dessert company. We found for selling to French customers, in particular, they needed to have everything for a buying meeting. They had to have everything translated into French, all the ingredients, the information, as well as samples. And the British company couldn't really understand why it was so important. And I said, no, it's something cultural, that the French buyers, they wanted to be organized and have everything. Of course, they didn't want anything in English. So marketing is so important, and that links into consultancy and project management. I mean, I worked for over 15 years on a UK government program which ended up being called the Export Communications Review. And effectively, I worked with hundreds of companies, looking with them at their business, how they communicate with their customers, and literally everything from people, website, packaging, different cultures they're working with, and put together with them a checklist and an action plan so that they would actually be successful. Loved it, and it was a very successful scheme. And I've gone on to work with many companies all around the world who also need to think very carefully about what do they need to do in order to sell in other markets. It may be everything can be in English. It may be that you need to have good website translated. Please not a website just using machine translation, or at least then fully proofread by a native speaker. But I've got involved in many different interesting projects with exhibitions, with new market entry, and obviously linking finally onto translation. I've got a sideline. I don't like to call it a sideline, but it's quite an important part of my business, is working with food and drink companies and working with them on multilingual packaging and making sure that all their products are correctly labeled and all the technical information is right. And I have a fantastic team of native speaker freelance translators who work with me on projects, as well as linking in whenever I can with other translation companies and agencies. So snapshot, whirlwind tour of a number of the things that I have done. But I'd like to ask you any questions you may have. I see there are a couple of points in the Q&A, in the chat. Let me see what people have said. Oh, could not agree more about interpreting. You need to be trained. Yes, of course. Yes, I certainly agree with you there that you have to be trained, and it's very much something which you can't just do, even if you are in effect totally fluent in 2 or more languages. And yeah, and hi from Belgium. Good to have you there. So really now, please, if you've got any any comments or questions that you would like to ask me, I'd love to hear from you. While I'm waiting, one thing somebody just did ask me recently about the how within business the machine translation and the new AI, how is that going to affect things? And I really believe that it can be such a benefit to us to use for getting obviously the gist of information and preparing things, but of course nothing replaces in business the benefit of speaking languages and communicating with our customers, because at the end of the day, people buy from people. That's what, although we may now have online meetings much more than face to face, but we still have to build up a relationship with our customers and our suppliers. So I see I've got some in the Q&A. Hello, Adele. What would you say to students who might not see the point of studying languages because everyone speaks English or AI will replace it? Well, I started on that in my last comment, so thank you very much for bringing that up. Actually, what I do find really interesting is that the level of English of many people who speak English as a second language, I actually feel does no longer really place native English speakers at an advantage. I find that really fascinating. So there is a kind of international English, which of course is used in many business transactions, but there is still, even if we're not going to speak Indonesian, we need to understand how the culture of how people do business. Even if we don't speak Arabic, we need to understand how to work with our Arabic customers or suppliers. Plus, I don't think AI will replace the benefit of actually talking with your customers, of people who are linguists. And this all goes back to the fact of being a linguist and understanding how the culture works. I always think back, let me just give you one anecdote, which just says it all. I was at a major exhibition, 1995, exhausted, 4th day. I really wanted to lie on the floor and just go to sleep. 2 very scruffy looking Spanish guys came onto the stand. I just started having a joke with them because I could. They ended up being my business partners for 20 years, and they were setting up which turned out to be one of the most successful food distribution businesses. And it's that kind of experience I wouldn't have had if I didn't have the language expertise. Yeah, what are we saying here? Thank you for your interesting talk. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I think the case of, I do remember when I worked for the medical company first, I did spend quite a long time wanting to use my languages and waiting for an opportunity to do it. Best places to look for roles in international business. Well, obviously through LinkedIn, through companies, through companies will do advertise for export sales. Link in with the Department of DTI, the UKTI, because they have links with companies who want to export. So I would also limited call center work, low paid, I get that, and it's a case of really finding companies which would be interested, and push yourself. I wouldn't even say it's been easy. I mean, and I've created my business around this. Um, Duolingo, yeah, I think, yeah, of course, if you're in a company and they want you to learn a language, Duolingo is not going to give you the competence to be able to use it in business straight away. If you start learning a language in your 30s, 40s, you the you can do it, but it's going to be so much harder for the company than employing a linguist or taking on maybe an external agent or a consultant to work with you. Um, so I really expect to know how to become a presenter. Oh, how many times have I participated? This is actually my first time I've ever actually participated in the show. Would you believe? I've been at the show many times in person, and I always feel free to check the policies. Neuro language coaching. I've got no idea what that is, but I'd be delighted to learn. And any more on the Q&A have I missed? Let me see. Oh, Adele says, what do you think of the current situation in the UK, where most jobs advertised as language jobs are low paid and not particularly interesting, e.g. call centre work? Why the lack of rewarding language roles? It's a disaster. And I think it's a case I mean, even working in a call centre and getting experience, of course, is good. Of course it is. But in terms of working in business, I mean, as a linguist, you can slot into any kind of company. So it's a case of building up your business expertise as well, and being super confident about your abilities, which I'm sure you are, Adele. But it's pushing. I'm not saying it's easy, and I wish you all so much good luck, and very be please don't hesitate anytime to email or get in touch with me. I'd be delighted to offer any comments, anything I might be able to um, offer. And thank you, Adele, for saying it was interesting talk. Main thing is that you haven't gone to sleep while I'm talking, and you found it interesting, and I've really enjoyed talking with you all. And thank you very much. I think I'm actually at my I'm 2 minutes off. And so just finally, it's all going to finish. And I very much hope you enjoy the rest of the um the talks. I'm certainly going to join in some as well. I think I'm going to do a taster session on Swedish, because I've always wanted to learn Swedish, and I'm working with a great Swedish company at the moment. But wishing you all the best. Thank you very much indeed, and I'll say goodbye. Bye. Thank you. And thank you to all of you as well. Thank you. A new message. Thank you. Goodbye.